Look, it may feel like July 22nd. It may feel like we're still in the middle of summer. It's the hot days, and this summer's never going to end. Football will never be here. But let me tell you, it's like a week away. Training camp is starting very, very soon. We don't have an exact start date for it yet, but I think it's going to be sooner rather than later. It's probably going to start next week. Players are going to report, and training camp will be underway. Yeah, it's coming. Football is almost here, and so we're going to spend this week talking about Pitt football. We've had a lot of other stuff over the last couple of weeks, and rightfully so, is when the news comes up and the news presents itself, or in the case of me going away on vacation, doing interviews all week, we've gotten into some different territory. But, buddy, it's football time right now. It's coming up, so we're going to dig in on some heavy football talk this week to get you ready for training camp, all the big storylines, all the big position previews, everything we need to break down. And we're starting today with the biggest position, the most important position on the field, the quarterbacks. The biggest storyline at quarterback, the people you need to know, the players you need to know, the important stats and data you need to know, everything you need to know to get ready for training camp, heading in to training camp. Everything you need to know about the quarterbacks heading into training camp. That's how you know I didn't script this opening little gambit here. Everything you need to know about the quarterbacks heading into training camp right here on the Monday edition of the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Smooth like butter there, folks. Smooth like butter on the old Morning Pitt. It's a Monday. Look, everybody's got a case of the Mondays after the weekend that was, and certainly a wild and interesting weekend. There was basketball stuff, and we're going to talk all football stuff today. I mean, there was basketball stuff. The Zoo Crew team won its basketball tournament game. Obviously, that was, I think that was interesting. Don't know how many people went to watch the game, but they should have. It was at the Peterson Event Center. But it's fun to watch that team and follow that team, the alumni team. And speaking of alumni, Bub Carrington finished off his summer league with a nice performance on Saturday for the Wizards, for my Wizards, with a double-double. So we'll be keeping an eye on that and certainly be discussing those, keeping an eye on the Wizards as the season goes on. But like I say, it's football time now. And we're not just starting our football previews at Panther-Lair.com. We've been doing football preview stuff basically since May, as we've been going position by position. We timed it up, but basically about 10 weeks, 10 positions, every position all through the offense: quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, offensive line. Over to the defense with the DNs, the D tackles, the linebackers. This week we're going to be on cornerbacks. Next week we will do our safeties preview. It all really kind of lined up perfectly. So we've been previewing football content for a long time. But here we're really digging into it on the Morning Pitt. And every now and then some of the things we would come up with for that football preview content would bleed into the Morning Pitt. But today and this week, it's all about hitting those previews and those position previews. And we might have some days where we get a couple positions in on one. And we might not even get through every position on these Morning Pitt previews. But today's a big one with the quarterbacks, and there's a lot to talk about there. A lot of it is storylines and topics we've discussed over the course of the offseason, but we're going to boil it all down into our 20 minutes or so that we do here on the Morning Pitt. You know what we always ask you to do, of course, is like this video and subscribe, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, so you don't miss any of our Pitt video content. And then check out the webpage, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com, and, of course, message boards to interact with hundreds and thousands of other Pitt fans. All day, every day, Pitt fans are talking about Pitt sports on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. So go check it out, and you will never miss any of the Pitt content. All right, quarterbacks. Okay, and the way with these position things, like I think we'll go sort of gimmicky talk radio. We'll have the biggest storyline, we'll have the biggest question, the name to know, and a stat that'll make you look smart. Something you can bring up to your friends, and they'll be like, "Ooh, that's good. That's interesting." And I think I can come up with one for just about every position. I don't know if I can. I think I can with today's position, the quarterbacks. But we'll get to the stat that'll make you look smart here in a minute. Look, the storyline for the quarterbacks, it's something we've stated over and over again in many different contexts. Basically, anytime anybody asks me anything about Pitt football in 2024, the first thing out of my mouth is related to the quarterbacks. People ask me, is Pitt going to be any good? Quarterbacks. People ask me, is Pitt going to be bad again? Quarterbacks. People ask me, what do I think about Narduzzi and whether Pitt can bounce back? Quarterbacks. What do I think about the schedule? Quarterbacks. What do I think Pitt's going to, are they going to get back to a bowl game? Quarterbacks. It all boils down to the quarterback, and that truth, that reality, that commonly spoken truth of football was laid bare for us last year. Everybody who watched Pitt football last year, if at some point in your life you doubted or had even the slightest bit of doubt or hesitation about the notion that the quarterback is the most important position on the field, last year made it abundantly clear how crucial it is. When the quarterback was the unquestioned weakness of this team, a team that was not without other weaknesses. We're not going to say that it was a perfect team, positions 1 through 21, and it just so happens that number 22 sucked. There were issues throughout that team. But if you don't have good quarterback play, you are going to struggle, and it's going to be bad. And if your quarterback play is bad, you will be bad. And likewise, even if you have some weaknesses throughout the team, if your quarterback play is good, it can cover up some of those things. It can elevate you. Now, sometimes you can kind of get by with subpar quarterback play. You can get by with average quarterback play. But make no mistake about it. Pitt didn't have subpar quarterback play last year. They didn't have average quarterback play last year. They had disastrous quarterback play. And I don't think there's a strong enough negative adjective we can use to describe the play at quarterback last season. It was terrible. You don't go 3-9 with decent quarterback play, with average quarterback play, with passable quarterback play. In order to go 3-9, you have to have a disaster at quarterback. And that's what Pitt had. Pitt had 3 quarterbacks start games last year, and each of them won 1 game. 2 of them started 5 games each and went 1-4 in their starts. And now, no, they weren't the only reason they lost those games. But we can look at this game or that game. Certainly the run defense against Cincinnati did not help Phil Dracovich's struggles in that game. The inability to stop Syracuse's tight end from running the ball did not help Christian Veilleux's struggles in that game. But Pitt has a legitimate chance to win both of those games despite the defensive issues if they've got average quarterback play. And I don't think that point can be overstated. And I don't think it can be stated enough. That they just needed average quarterback play to get back to a bowl game. Now, the season still would have been a disappointment. It would have been a step down from 2022 when they went 9-4 and 2021 when they went 11-3. We entered last season talking a whole lot about how Pitt was coming off 20 wins in 2 seasons, back-to-back ranked finishes, top 25 team in the beginning poll and the ending poll. Never mind that they weren't ranked in the middle. They didn't go wire to wire ranked, but they were ranked at the beginning and they were ranked at the end in 2022. Everything was heading in a positive direction. There was a lot of momentum in the program. We talked a lot about that momentum in the offseason leading into last year. And so even if they had gone 6-6, 7-5, maybe even 8-4, lose a bowl game 8-5, it would have been a disappointment and a step back. And you'd be like, man, we would still be having some of the conversations about the direction of the program under Pat Narduzzi, because it would be there would be a feeling that it wasn't heading in the right direction. That Narduzzi had gone from the ACC championship to a 9-win season with a pretty disastrous month of October to a 6, 7, 8-win season, certainly with probably some bad losses in there. And so it wouldn't be good, but it would be a whole heck of a lot better than 3-9. And you get to 6-6, 7-5, 8-4 with just average quarterback play. If Christian Veilleux started the whole season, they probably win at least 5 games, if not 6. If Nate Yarnell starts the whole season, I'm pretty sure they win at least 6 games, if not 7 and possibly 8. I think you can look through the schedule and say average quarterback play certainly beats West Virginia, Wake Forest, and Syracuse. That's 3 right there. Now you're already up to 6 wins, and I think you've got a legitimate chance against Cincinnati and Virginia Tech, neither of which was a very good team. And both were games that were absolutely winnable, despite some defensive struggles and shortcomings in those games. They were still very much winnable with average quarterback play. So, West Virginia, Wake Forest, Syracuse, I have no doubt in my mind they win those games with average quarterback play. You throw in Cincinnati and Virginia Tech, and now you're looking at an 8-win season. And you don't need to beat Florida State. You don't need to beat Notre Dame. You don't need to beat North Carolina. You don't even need to win the game at Duke, which Nate Yarnell did not win. Although he went 25 of 35 for 265, 2 touchdowns and a pick. And the pick wasn't really his fault. And we've talked about this a few times. Like that was a weird fluky play that caused the interception. And like a play before that, he threw a perfect touchdown pass to Malcolm Epps that Epps didn't catch. And so he never should have had it. He never should have been in a position to throw that interception if his teammates didn't let him down. So, nevertheless, we don't even need to talk ourselves into Pitt winning that game or talk ourselves into Pitt beating Florida State, which was a game that was actually an opportunity to win. We don't need to talk ourselves into Pitt winning at Notre Dame or beating North Carolina. Set those 4 aside. Keep those losses. An 8-4 season was right there to be had if you don't have a disaster at quarterback. And so that's the storyline for this season. It's one of the biggest storylines for the whole team, quite frankly. It probably is the number one story, aside from, adapting to the new offense and whether Cade Bell's offense is going to work, which is intrinsically tied to the quarterback situation. It all boils down to the quarterback. This is what it's all about. And as the quarterback goes, so too will this team go. And I mean, that's a truism in football, but it's been made so abundantly clear in the last few years, last year and 2021, of how much of a difference good quarterback play can make or bad quarterback play can make. That's the storyline. So who's the name to know? You already know it. It's Nate Yarnell. Nate Yarnell is the guy. He's going to be the starting quarterback this year. There were some points where I thought, well, maybe Eli Holstein might be able to win that job, or Eli Holstein might be able to, Eli Holstein really push, because Eli Holstein is another name to know. The transfer from Alabama came in, impressed the coaches in January, was a little bit banged up going into spring camp, still worked his way up to the number 2 spot on the depth chart by the end of spring camp, leading to Christian Veyer going into the transfer portal. And who knows, if he was healthy, how far he might have ascended. Would he have beaten Nate Yarnell, climbed above Nate Yarnell in spring camp? I don't think so, for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is it's not really a good thing to have your presumed starting quarterback lose the job in spring and then decide to go into the transfer portal. You need Nate Yarnell here this summer and this fall. Even if you think Eli Holstein is the man, you still need Nate Yarnell here. But I digress. I'm not at all suggesting that the coaches kept Nate Yarnell as the number 1 quarterback because they were afraid of him transferring. I'm not suggesting that at all. But that is one reason why it's in your best interest not to have Eli Holstein move up to that level. But either way, I think Holstein is going to come into training. If he comes into training camp healthy and he's ready to compete, I think there could be a good battle between Holstein and Yarnell. I still think Yarnell is the number 1 guy. The fact that he's going to ACC Media Days, the ACC kickoff this week, really gives you some indication of what the coaches believe. I think if they didn't think Nate Yarnell was going to hold on to the job through training camp, hold on to the job in the season, I don't think they would send him down there. Pat Narduzzi would not do that. He's very particular about these things. He chooses who we interview, after practice on a daily basis. He's certainly going to make an informed decision and a premeditated decision about who to send to Media Day. Gavin Bartholomew, Donovan McMillan, these guys make sense. Nate Yarnell joining them speaks to Yarnell's position as the starting quarterback on this team. And barring a meltdown mid-season, a Djokovic or Veyer type of performance, I think he holds on to that job throughout the season. Who is Nate Yarnell? He's a redshirt junior this year. He's waited his turn, came in the recruiting class of 2021, which is the class that did not take visits. He did not come up on official visits. I think the first time Nate Yarnell set foot on campus is when he enrolled. And so that says a little something. A lot of that class has kind of washed out. A lot of those guys have gone into have transferred because well, wasn't exactly what they were expecting or what they were hoping for. Nate Yarnell stuck it out. Nate Yarnell is still here. He has stayed, in the post-Kenny Pickett era through 3 transfer quarterbacks coming in, never bailed in, some guys, when Keaton Slovis was brought in as a transfer in 2022, would have said, I'm out of here. Then when Phil Dracovic and Christian Veer were brought in 2023, might have said, I'm out of here. Because the writing was on the wall right there that Frank Cignetti did not believe in Nate Yarnell. And so he brought in Dracovic to be the starter in 23 and Veer to be the starter for the next couple of years. Veer's in the same class, has the same eligibility as Nate Yarnell. So Frank Cignetti was making a very clear decision and judgment on Nate Yarnell. Look who's still here. Not Dracovic, not Veer, not Cignetti. Nate Yarnell is still here and poised to be the starting quarterback. How's he going to do in that job? All we have is evidence of how he has performed thus far in his Pitt career. He's appeared in 6 games. I had his stats, but I wanted to get the stats of the games. Of course, he made the spot start at Western Michigan in 2022 through 2 passes in the Sun Bowl against UCLA, came in mop-up duty against Notre Dame and Syracuse this past season, and then made the 2 starts at the end of the year, Boston College and Duke. As a starting quarterback, he's 2-1. Win at Western Michigan and home against Boston College, lost to Duke. He's one of I remember we wrote about this when we did our quarterback position preview. He's one of only a few Pitt quarterbacks under Pat Narduzzi who have a winning record. It is him, Kenny Pickett, Keaton Slovis, Nick Patty, I think. And that's it. Of guys who, have a starting record have a winning record as a starting quarterback. So, the other starters have been Ben DiNucci. I guess Chad Wojtek technically was 2-0 as a starter under Pat Narduzzi, even though he lost the job midway through the second game. But Ben DiNucci, Max Brown, Veer, Dracovic, these guys all have losing records as starters. Nate Yarnell, 2-1. More relevantly, his stats over the course of his 6 appearances, the 6 games he has appeared in, completed 67% of his passes for 790 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 1 interception. In his 3 career starts, he's 45 of 66, which is 68.2% completion percentage, 651 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. You put that over 13 games, it works out to about 2,800 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. That's a pretty good stat line. But here's the stat to make you look smart. Here's 2 stats, actually. You want to drop these on your friends today because I'm sure this is the only thing anybody will be talking about at the water cooler today. There's no other topics anyone could possibly have any interest in. And you know this because you look at the Panther-Lair.com message boards and no one's talking about anything other than this. When you're talking to your friends at work or you're texting with your Pitt fans, you can tell them that if you look at Yarnell's stats in the Boston College and Duke game, his 2 most recent starts, and look, the Western Michigan game played well. He completed 9 of 12 passes. Threw for 179 yards and 1 touchdown, but 9 of 12, not exactly a big sample size. The Boston College and Duke games, he started Pitt's 2 most recent games. You take those 2 games, break them down, project them over 13 games, and you get 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. Would you take that? Tell your friends, be like, look, the way Yarnell played in that Boston College and Duke game, he played like a quarterback. His numbers were those of a quarterback who would throw for 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 7 picks. Would you take those stats? I absolutely would. I don't think anyone would say no to that performance from a quarterback. It would be the best performance by a Pitt quarterback since Kenny Pickett in 2021, and actually would eclipse, I would say, Pickett's performance as the starter in 2018 for sure, possibly his performance in 2020, although I think he was a little bit better than the numbers indicate. And maybe even his performance in 2019 when he threw for a lot of yards, but it was more like volume based. This would be a legitimately good performance. 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, 7 picks. Here's another stat you can impress your friends with. Nate Yarnell threw 66 passes to begin his career before he threw 1 interception. And after that, he threw 10 more without a pick. He's thrown 66 passes in his, no, that's not right. 76 passes in his career. It was 66 in his 3 starts. Total in his career, 76 passes. He threw 66 before he threw an interception. That's pretty good. And then he threw a pick, and then he threw 9 more passes after that in the Duke game. So, what's the word to describe Nate Yarnell? It's efficiency. He's been efficient. He has protected the football. He hasn't put it in harm's way. He hasn't put it in jeopardy. He's made good decisions. He's gotten the ball to the receivers. That's what he's done. 67% completion on his career. 68% completion in his 3 career starts. 66.7% completion in his last 2 starts. Nate Yarnell has been efficient. Now he's going to be running a brand new offense. There's going to be more volume passing in this offense. We'll see how he does when he starts for a full season. But Nate Yarnell has passed every test that has been put in front of him. He's stuck it out in the face of multiple transfers being brought in and a coordinator who didn't believe in him. He's stepped up when he's been called upon. He'd go on the road at Western Michigan, come in at tail end of a brutally bad season and give the last spark of life in getting a win against Boston College, and then damn near lead him to a win at Duke to almost finish on a 2-game winning streak. Nate Yarnell has been efficient and good decision maker and all those things, but he has done everything that's been asked of him. Nate Yarnell has risen to the occasion every time. He's stepped up to the plate. So I think it's fair to withhold judgment. It's fair to have cautious optimism, but I think it's also reasonable to have optimism. You can measure that however you want and be measured with it however you like, but it's optimism all the same because of what he's done in his career. And if he's good, this offense will be good. And if this offense is good, this team will win games. It's really as simple as that. It's never been simpler than it is right now. This team will win 8 games if Nate Yarnell is good. And 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. They'll win 8 games. Whether it's 7-5 in the regular season and they win their bowl, or 8-4 in the regular season and they lose their bowl. Either way, they go 8-4, 8-5. Maybe they pull one out in the bowl game and they go 9-4 or something like that. If Nate Yarnell is good. So not to put too much pressure on the young man, but yeah, all the pressure is on him. But that's what quarterbacks sign up for, right? All right, make sure you like this video and subscribe, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you don't miss any of our Pitt video content right here on the YouTubes. And check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com to get all of your Pitt sports needs. We'll be talking a lot about quarterbacks this week. We're talking a lot about Pitt football this week. You want to be part of it, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Thanks so much for tuning in today. It's been a lot of fun. Hope you had a great weekend and hope your Monday goes well. We'll catch up with you tomorrow on the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.